Hello family, this is Twitreadings and we are still on the book The Richest Man in Babylon. We are on chapter 4, which is the 7 cures for a lean purse. I have a lean purse and I want to know how to fatten it. So if you're on with me on this ride, let's go. The glory of Babylon endures. Down through the ages, its reputation comes to us as the richest of cities. Its treasures as fabulous. Yet, it was not always so. The riches of Babylon were the result of the wisdom of its people. They first had to learn how to become wealthy. When the good king Sargon returned to Babylon after defeating his enemies, the Elamites, he was confronted with a serious situation. The royal chancellor explained to the king that, after many years of great prosperity, brought to our people because your majesty built the great irrigation canals and the mighty temples of the gods. Now that these works are completed, the people seem unable to support themselves. The laborers are without employment, the merchants have few customers, and the farmers are unable to sell their produce. The people have not enough gold to buy food. But where has all the gold gone that we have spent for these great improvements? Demanded the king. It has found its way, I fear, responded the chancellor, into the possession of a few very rich men in our city. It filtered through the fingers of most our people as quickly as goat's milk goes through the strainer. Now that the stream of gold has ceased to flow, most of our people have nothing for their earnings. The king was thoughtful for some time. Then he asked, why should so few men be able to acquire all the gold? Because they know how, replied the chancellor. One may not condemn a man for succeeding because he knows how. Neither may one with justice take away from a man what he had fairly earned, to give to men of less ability. But why? Demanded the king. Should not all the people learn how to accumulate gold, and therefore become themselves rich and prosperous? Quite possible, Your Excellency. But who can teach them? Certainly not the priests, because they know not of money-making. Who knows best in all our city how to make wealth, Chancellor? Asked the king. Thy question answers itself. Your Majesty, who has amassed the greatest wealth in Babylon? Well said, my able chancellor. It is Arkad. He is richest man in Babylon. Bring him to me on the morrow. Upon the following day, as the king had decreed, Arkad appeared before him, straight and upright, despite his 80 years and 10. Arkad, spoke the king, is it true thou art the richest man in Babylon? So it is reported, Your Majesty, and no man reputes it. How becomest thou so wealthy? By taking advantage of opportunities available to all citizens of our good city. Thou hadst nothing to start with, only a great desire for wealth. Besides this, nothing. Arkad, continued the king, our city is in a very unhappy state because a few men know how to acquire wealth and therefore monopolize it, while the mass of our citizens lack the knowledge of how to keep any part of the gold they receive. It is my desire that Babylon be the wealthiest city in the world. Therefore, it must be a city of many wealthy men. Therefore, we must teach all the people how to acquire riches. Tell me, Arkad, is there any secret to acquire wealth? Can it be taught? It is practical, Your Majesty. That which one man knows can be taught to others. The king's eyes glowed. Arkad, thou speakest the words I wish to hear. Wilt thou lend thyself to this great cause? Wilt thou teach thy knowledge to a school of teachers, each of whom shall teach others until there are enough trained to teach these truths to every worthy subject in my domain? Arkad bowed and said,
I am thy humble servant to command. Whatever knowledge I possess will I gladly give for the betterment of my fellow men and the glory of my king. Let your good chancellor arrange for me a class of 100 men, and I will teach them those 7 cures which did fatten my pets, than which there was none leaner in all Babylon. A fortnight later, in compliance with the king's command, the chosen 100 assembled in the great hall of the temple of learning, seated upon colorful rings in a semicircle. Arkad sat beside a small tablet, upon which smoked a sacred lamp, sending forth a strange and pleasing odor. "Behold the rich man in Babylon," whispered a student, nudging his neighbor as Arkad arose. "He is but a man, even as the rest of us." "As a dutiful subject of our great king," Arkad began, "I stand before you in his service, because once I was a poor youth who did greatly desire gold, and because I found knowledge that enabled me to acquire it, he asks that I impart unto you my knowledge. I started my fortune in the humblest way. I had no advantage not enjoyed as fully by you and every citizen in Babylon. The first storehouse of my treasure was a well purse. I loathed its useless emptiness. I desired it to be round and full, clinking with the sound of gold. Therefore I sought every remedy for a lean purse, and I found 7. To you, who are assembled before me, shall I explain the 7 cures for a lean purse, which I do recommend to all men who desire much gold. Each day for 7 days I will explain to you one of the 7 remedies. Listen attentively to the knowledge that I will impart. Debate it with me. Discuss it among yourselves. Learn these lessons thoroughly, that ye may also plant in your own purse the seed of wealth. First must each of you start wisely to build a fortune of his own. Then will thou be competent, and only then, to teach these truths to others. I shall teach you, in simple ways, how to fatten your purses. This is the first step leading to the temple of wealth, and no man may climb who cannot plant his feet firmly upon the first step. We shall now consider the first cure. The first cure: start thy purse to fatten it. Arkad addressed a thoughtful man in the second row. "My good friend, at what craft workest?" "I," replied the man, "am a scribe, and carve records upon the clay tablets. Even at such labor did I myself earn my first coppers. Therefore thou hast the same opportunity to build a fortune." He spoke to a florid-faced man further back. "Pray tell us what thou dost to earn thy bread." "I," responded the man, "am a meat butcher. I do buy the goats the farmers raise, and kill them, and sell the meat to the housewives, and the hides to the sandal makers. Because thou dost also labor and earn, thou hast every advantage to succeed that I did possess." In this way did Arkad proceed to find out how each man labored to earn his living. When he had done questioning them, he said, "Now, my students, ye can see that there are many trades and labors at which men may earn coins. Each of the ways of earning is a stream of gold, from which the worker doth divert by his labors a portion to his own purse. Therefore, into the purse of each of you flows a stream of coin, large or small, according to his ability. Is it not so?" Thereupon they agreed that it was so. "Then," continued Arkad, "if each of you desired to build for himself a fortune, is it not wise to start by utilizing that source of wealth which he already has established?" To this they agreed. Then Arkad turned to a humble man who had declared himself an egg merchant. If thou select one of thy baskets, and put into it each morning 10 eggs, and take out from it each evening 9 eggs, what will eventually happen? It will become in time overflowing. Why? Because each day I put in one more egg than I take out. Arkad turned to the class with a smile. Does any man here have a lean purse? First they looked amused. Then they laughed. Lastly they waved their purses in jest. All right, he continued. Now I shall tell thee the first remedy I learned to cure a lean purse. Do exactly as I have suggested to the egg merchant. For every 10 coins thou placest within thy purse, take out for use but 9. Thy purse will start to fatten at once, and its increasing weight will feel good in thy hand and bring satisfaction to thy soul. Deride not what I say because of its simplicity. Truth is always simple. I told thee I will tell how I built my fortune. This was my beginning. I too carried a lean purse and cursed it because there was not within to satisfy my desires. But when I began to take out from my purse but 9 parts of 10 I put in, it began to fatten, so will thine. Now I will tell a strange truth, the reason for which I know not. When I ceased to pay out more than 9/10 of my earnings, I managed to get along just as well. I was not shorter than before. Also, ere long did coins come to me more easily than before. Surely it is a law of the gods that unto him who keepeth and spendeth not a certain part of all his earnings shall gold come more easily. Likewise, him whose purse is empty does gold avoid. Which desirest thou the most? Is it the gratification of thy desires of each day, a jewel, a bit of finery, better raiment, more food, things quickly gone and forgotten? Or is it substantial belongings, gold, lands, herds, merchandise, income-bringing investments? The coins thou takest from thy purse brings the first. The coins thou leavest within it will bring the latter. This, my student, was the first cure I did discover for my lean purse. For each 10 coins I put in, I spend but 9. Debate this among yourselves. If any man proves it untrue, tell me upon the morrow, when we shall meet again. The second cure, control thy expenditures. What did he say? Control thy expenditures. Some of your members, my students, have asked me this. How can a man keep 1/10 of all he earns in his purse when all the coins he earns are not enough for his necessary expenses? So did Arkad address his students upon the second day. Yesterday, how many of thee carried lean purses? All of us, answered the class. Yet thou do not all earn the same. Some earn much more than others. Some have much larger families to support, yet all purses are equally lean. Now I will tell thee an unusual truth about men and sons of men. It is this, that what each of us call our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we protest to the contrary. Confuse not the necessary expenses with our desires. Each of you, together with your good family, have more desires than your earnings can gratify. Therefore, are thy earnings spent to gratify these desires insofar as they will go? Still thou retainest many ungratified desires. All men are burdened with more desires than they can gratify. Because of my wealth, thinkest thou I may gratify every desire? 'Tis a false idea. There are limits to my time. There are limits to my strength. There are limits to the distance I may travel. There are limits to what I may eat. There are limits to the zest with which I may enjoy. I say to you that just as weeds grow in the field wherever the farmer leaves space for their roots, even so freely do desires grow in a man whenever there is the possibility for their being gratified. The desires are a multitude, and those that thou mayest gratify are but few. Study thoughtfully thy accustomed habits of living. Herein may be most often found certain accepted expenses that may wisely be reduced or eliminated. Let thy motto be 100% of appreciated value demanded for each coin spent. Therefore, engrave upon the clay each thing for which thou desirest to spend. Select those which are necessary, and others that are possible through the expenditure of 9/10 of thy income. Cross out the rest, and consider them but a part of the great multitude of desires that must go unsatisfied, and regret them not. Budget then thy necessary expenses. Touch not the one thing that is fattening thy purse. Let this be thy great desire that is being fulfilled. Keep working with thy budget. Keep adjusting it to help thee. Make it thy first assistant in defending thy fattening purse. Hereupon, one of the students, wearing a robe of red and gold, arose and said, I am a free man. I believe that it is my right to enjoy the good things of life. Therefore do I rebel against the slavery of a budget, which determines just how much I may spend, and for what. I feel it would make much pleasure from my life, and make me little more than a pack ass to carry a burden. To him Arkad replied, Who, my friend, will determine thy budget? I will make it for myself, responded the protesting one. In that case, were a packer to budget his burden, would he include therein jewels and rags and heavy bars of gold? Not so. He would include hay and grain and a bag of water for the desert trials. The purpose of a budget is to help thy purse to fatten. It is to assist thee to have thy necessities, and insofar as attainable, thy other desires. It is to enable thee to realize thy most cherished desires by defending them from casual wishes. Like a bright light in the dark cave, thy budget shows up the leaks from their purse and enables thee to stop them and control thy expenditure for definite and gratifying purposes. This, then, is the second cure for a lean purse. Budget thy expenses that thou mayest have coins to pay for thy necessities, to pay for the enjoyments, and to gratify thy worthwhile desires without spending more than 9/10 of thy earning. We are at the end of the first part of chapter 4. 7 cures for a lean purse. Our first cure is to leave 1/10 of all our earnings in our purse, and with time we will be grateful to ourselves for what good we have done. But we already know that in the previous chapters. Our only problem was how to live on the 9/10 that is remaining. Our problem is that the money is not enough. It's not going to take us through till we get our next earning. But the second cure tells us to cut down on our expenditure. Well, how do I cut down on my expenditure? I need all these things that I'm spending on. So what is cutting down on what? We have to draw a budget. A budget is making a list of how you intend to spend your revenue. Your revenue in this case is your earnings every month, every 2 weeks, every day, every 3 weeks. You understand? So you make a list of things you intend to use that money for. So we have need and we have countless desires.
So we pick the most important to us. We arrange from the highest priority, then to the lowest. Exactly. The scale of preference, as the economists will say. We need to arrange our needs in a scale of preferences. If we do not do that, we have many desires. When you get money, that is when you know the things you want. That is when you remember the food you have been wanting to eat for a while. That is when you remember the hairstyle you wanted to do for a very long time. And if we grant all these desires, we will not have money for the things we need. Therefore, we would need to go into our savings for the things we need. So it is prudent to rather draw a budget before you even get your earning on the things you need, so that our desires do not take them away from us. And the last thing, let us stick to our budgets. Drawing a budget is not difficult. No, not at all. But sticking to it is so difficult. So let's try. So far as you're willing to be rich, so far as you're willing to be out there as one of the richest people, you should be willing to sacrifice your desires. Sacrifice some of your desires and stick to your budget. We'll continue with the other cures for our pets in the next reading. Thank you for following me. Yes, I'm enjoying the ride and I hope you're enjoying it too. This is Twitreadings. You'd find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Twitreadings just for you.